Dealing with North Korea now after a weekend of more rhetoric from the rogue nation over new sanctions, Russia is actually offering to broker talks between the U.S. and the North. This, as South Korea predicts, it is, and its northern neighbor will look to open talks next year. The top Democrat on Senate Foreign Relations believes there is an opening for diplomacy. Listen.
There are pretty strong additional sanctions to be imposed against North Korea because of their continued testing of ballistic missiles. So that is absolutely, it was a strong move forward. It was great to see China and Russia join us in that. It now needs to be followed up with diplomacy, where we get China and the United States working with the same strategy with North Korea to find a way that we can ease the tension and get North Korea to change directions.
Patrick Granfield served as a speechwriter for Defense Secretary Ash Carter and Secretary of State John Kerry. He's currently an adjunct professor at Georgetown University. Thank you very much for talking to us. I always say talk is cheap, so I want to see action. And, you know, when it comes to talks, Rex Tillerson, he has come forward. He said that he wants to actually try to open up a dialogue with North Korea. But it's interesting because he and President Trump are sort of on again, off again when it comes to an agreement between the U.S. and North Korea and wanting diplomatic talks with Pyongyang. Is that even possible now after a weekend of more dangerous rhetoric from North Korea?
Well, Julie, there's an old saying in diplomacy that diplomacy without force is like a symphony without instruments. And I think in order to have diplomacy work, you do need to have a credible threat of force. And even though we're in the season of hope and joy and peace, I think we do really need to think seriously, think hard about the prospect of what a military confrontation, of what military actions against North Korea would entail in 2018. And this is difficult because ever since North Korea got a nuclear capability back in 2006, in the Bush administration, there's really been a lack of clarity about what the options are and about what we have to do. And here, this is a year where we have to face the facts. We have to face the truth. And what that will require is for us to exhaust all diplomatic options available. And I think you heard those sound bites from Rex Tillerson, and you've seen the work of Secretary Mattis and Ambassador Haley. And I think it's encouraging that they are ratcheting up the diplomatic pressure, because when you look at what even a limited military escalation would involve, and you've heard from the administration, they say this is possible. But Julie, I went to Catholic school, and I remember a Latin phrase that we learned, and it was a bellum ipsum allet. That means war feeds on itself. And we don't know exactly what a war will cost, what its ramifications will be, but we do know that diplomacy, deterrence, backed up by a credible threat of force, has worked in the past, and that's what we should continue to pursue in 2018.
Unfortunately, though, it hasn't worked with North Korea. I mean, and, you know, I want to know where you stand with the Kremlin even offering to broker talks between Pyongyang and the U.S. I mean, how is that going to go?
Well, I think, Julie, you're right. I hear some skepticism in your voice there, and I think believing that Putin would be an honest broker of this is believing that the New York Giants would have a good chance at the Super Bowl this year.
That's sad.
I think that's
as a Giants fan, but it is reality.
It's true.
And
it's
I'm
the
willing
reality.
to accept it.
I think we need to work with the Chinese. We need to work with the Japanese. We need to work with the South Koreans to be in lockstep. And also, we need to be tough on Russia. Before Russia can be an honest broker, before they can sit down and broker a peace, we need to look at what they're doing to aid North Korea. They've laundered North Korean money. They've helped their missile program. So in a sense, being tough on North Korea means being tough on Russia. And that's something that President Trump will have to do in 2018.
I think he's sent a pretty strong message to Russia. You know, let's talk South Korea, because today South Korea has even predicted that the North will look to open talks with them next year. Can South Korea even trust North Korea after all the direct threats coming in the form of missile test firing over the years? I mean, I just don't know what can be trusted here.
No, Julia, I think you're right. And I think the South Koreans, we need them to be in lockstep with us, and we need to be in lockstep with them. And that means continuing our training exercises, continuing to work with the great men and women of PACOM, our military in the Pacific Theater, and making sure that we are prepared. You know, they have a slogan out there, and I've seen them train on the Korean Peninsula, and the slogan is "Fight Tonight." And while nobody wants to see a fight tonight, we need to be prepared, we need to be ready, and in order to be ready, in order to be prepared, we need to have legitimacy of the international community and a full diplomatic, full press over the next few months and into the next year.
I don't want to be the one to expose our weaknesses here, but we're not ready. I mean, we're not. I mean, our THAAD system's not ready. Our missile defense program is not ready. And we have troops based in South Korea. North Korea doesn't want U.S. troops based in South Korea. I mean, what is the military's role if these talks ever actually do take place?
Well, you heard the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Neller, one of the greatest leaders and Marines of his generation, say just in the past week that, yes, we need to be prepared for a big blank war, and that our soldiers really need to ramp up their preparations. But at the same time, again, we need our diplomats and our military professionals working in tandem, and we need to support them wholeheartedly so that that threat can be as credible as possible, and we can defuse this crisis peacefully in 2018.
Let's hope so. Patrick Granfield, thank you so much.
Thank you.